To leap taken. Hi. This is gonna be a good. It is gonna be a good one. Hello. It is gonna be a good one. Hello, welcome to Leap Taken. I'm Mika. Here at Leap Taken, I talk all things witchy, craft related, law of attraction, manifesting, esoteric, and everything else in between. And welcome. So, topic today is: am I being a witch, or am I going through a psychosis? um, when I talk about topics, I like to keep it relatively lighthearted. Always remember, I am very much Gen X. It is hard for me to take things too seriously. Even when it's serious, I still will say something probably inappropriate to make a joke because I'm hardwired to do so, and I don't know how to make that stop. So, hey, let's get into this topic. But also, this is not something where it's a couple different things. We're we're not going to make this into a thing where I'm like the expert. I don't have letters behind my name. I'm not a therapist. I'm not a psychiatrist. I'm not here to diagnose or this, to analyze somebody or, I have no authority or credentials to do so, but I'm going to talk a lot from my experience. So I'm going to repeat that probably again because I think it's going to bear repeating. Okay, so get your tea, get your coffee. I got my gigantic water drug. It hopefully becomes one for me. I'm trying to get used to drinking so much water. But get your beverage. Let's get cozy. Let's get comfortable. I got my favorite crystal here to help me. And we're going to talk some things out, and hopefully there's some help that can come from this. And this is a personal topic. I've shared some things in a previous live that I recently did about my own concerns about this. So this is a very personal topic. All right, so I have my notes here because the tangents be coming. So, am I being a witch, or is it something else like psychosis? So, this topic has come up a lot in conversations I've had with other witches. As I mentioned, it's something I question myself about at certain points in my journey. I do want to approach this with love, care, and honesty because it's an important discussion that impacts not just witches but anyone exploring their spirituality deeply, especially if like you're doing shadow work and stuff like that. Again, this is not about diagnosing or dismissing anyone. My goal here is to share perspectives and provide clarity and encourage you to prioritize both your spiritual and mental well being. So, why does this topic matter? Why is this an important discussion? Hey, the Empress Golf afternoon. Well, as witches, we often walk between worlds, right? We talk about spirit communication, hearing messages in nature. We feel energies, seeing the signs and understanding, hey, Coco Lux, signs, symbols, all that sort of stuff. These experiences, they can be beautiful and transformative. I've had a lot of them, but they're also deeply personal and sometimes intense. So, in mainstream culture, these experiences can be misunderstood or pathologized. And if we're being honest, sometimes we might even second guess ourselves. Did I really just hear a message from, Hecate, Hathor, whoever, a deity, or is my mind playing tricks on me? Is this my intuition, or am I losing touch with reality? Um, these questions can be scary. They can feel scary, and but I think it's worth exploring as someone who's learned, or I should say, I learned to lean deeply into my spiritual practice over the years because it wasn't automatic. I don't want to paint this picture like, oh, I've always just been like this. No, this was something I learned over the years. I've learned to lean into my spirituality practice. And doing so, I learned that being intentional and grounded is key. But we also need to know when to step back and ask for help. So, a little bit about that. I have already experienced death as a practicing witch, people being born, health issues, separations, divorce, you know, just all kinds of, major life events that are not necessarily the most positive things that you want to go through. I've experienced that as a practicing witch, and leaning into my spirituality. It may not look like it does for other people, but it is reaching out, talking out loud to my ancestors, having out loud conversations, asking them for help. I liken it to how everybody else, who practices one of the big three prays, so I see it like that. But I think what would be very, in a moment of that situation, which I'm going to get into signs of concern in a minute, I think for me, if I felt like I heard an audible voice answer back, and it wasn't muffled, it wasn't like a thought form pop in my head, but an audible voice that wasn't coming from here, but just I'm hearing it. Um, in these high stress situations, I think that would make me question some things. Um, Now, I have experienced this somewhat, but it was different. It wasn't like in a very awake status. It was usually when you're like lucid, like you're half lucid coming out of a sleep or going into one. We've all had that experience where it sounds like somebody's calling your name, or you hear like murmurs of conversation, but you can't make all the words out. You might just hear a number or one phrase or just a word. I know a lot of people have experienced things like that, but usually it's tied to something around your sleep pattern, either before you woke up out of a sleep, like it's around unconsciousness. But just like, am I waking hours, fully awake? No, I've not experienced it like that. Not quite like that. I've heard what I call the whispers in my mind, kind of. And I've always assumed it was part higher self, part ancestor spirit guiding me. And the information is usually, it's not always a high stressful situation. Like, just, like I'm sitting here now and I might get like a phrase pops in my head type thing. Sometimes I hear it in a different, like a familiar, like my mom's voice or something like that. My mom's very much alive. But I hear like the thought form, or the thought comes from her voice, stuff like that. But that doesn't happen all the time. Usually I'm on feelings. It's a strong feeling or a gentle urge or nudge or something like that. But I would be very concerned if I heard in just like everyday waking hours, I'm hearing very audible voices talking to me. Now, a healthy witchcraft practices, it should empower you. A healthy witchcraft practice empowers you. Greetings, Kim. It's intentional, and it usually leaves you feeling grounded, even after heavy shadow work or deep rituals. This is important. You should be feeling empowered. So here's some examples. You feel connected to a deity like Hecate or Yemaya, and notice recurring symbols or experiences, right? But these don't consume your thoughts, and they don't make you feel out of control. So I had dreams of Hecate. She would come to me as somebody I really trusted, but not quite like them. It was always something that looked different. I found this fascinating, like it more than one dream, and that's how she comes to me, or has up until this point come to me. But like I said, it's always, I know it's not the person because there's something off. Like they smile different, but it looks like them, like a lot like this person I trust. Um, there were signs and things like that that I did get. It wasn't consuming. I found, like I said, I found it fascinating. I talked about it with my coven, but I did other things in my life, and I never felt like anything was. It didn't feel out of control. I didn't feel like it was happening. And like I said, in my waking hours, I was having these experiences, and it was kind of snuffing out any other type of reality. Um, so we're talking healthy practices here. Your intuition leads you to meaningful synchronicities, right? But you can differentiate between spiritual signs and coincidences. This is a tough one, even for those who've been practicing for a while. Now, I'm going to share something kind of personal. I told you we're going to get personal. Um, I've been trying off and on to decide if I'm going to get major surgery to deal with my fibroids. I have fibroids, uterine fibroids. And it has been a journey most of my adult life with this. It has gotten worse as I've gotten older, and it's becoming unbearable. Um, I physically cannot work like outside my home outside of those days. Like for at least 3 days out of the month, I can't do things. I have very low iron, and that's some complications coming with that. I have been trying to get surgery um, a few times. I'm on, I believe this is my fourth attempt, and I have gotten another situation that occurred where I have appointments lined up, but I have a problem with my insurance. And I won't probably be able to resolve this until another probably 2 months. This happened the same time last year. The time before then, I made an appointment with a surgeon, and I have gotten an ultrasound and everything. Like I've started the process, and every time there's something. So this I'm working backwards. This time is insurance. This time last year there was the insurance. It was another insurance. I had a lapse in insurance, for lack of better words. I had lapse in insurance, and I was fighting trying to get insurance with another place. It didn't work out, and I was able to get insurance like a month or two later. But during the time I was supposed to be doing this stuff, I didn't have it. The year before then, halfway through the year, I was supposed to meet with the doctor, and we were going to have a consultation. I'm meeting them so they can do the surgery. This is a different doctor. I'm meeting them so we could do the surgery. Why they canceled the appointment, and I wasn't able to get this doctor back again. I don't know what happened. And I just took that as an omen at that point. 6 months prior to this time, this would be the first attempt. I go to a doctor, set everything up. I'm thinking this is going to happen. The doctor examines me and everything. It was a male. I felt like I got a switcheroo because I was told I was meeting a female. I prefer a female doctor. So it was jarring, and it was a tough visit for me because I did not know I was meeting with a man there. It really threw me off. I was already nervous, had a lot of anxiety, but I pushed through that appointment, and I wrapped my mind around the fact that, okay, if this is the best person, just move forward. And they told me they would call me and they would set up my surgery date. And I kept waiting. Week 1, week 2, week 3. It's a month later. And I've been calling since 2 weeks outside of my appointment. And guess what? He left. He left the practice. No one told me. You're supposed to get a letter in the mail or something like that. Never got anything. And then they said, oh, I am so sorry. We're going to have somebody is going to call you and straighten this out. This is when I called. I got this information. And then this I never got a call again. So now it's like now we're about 2 months from the initial visit, and I call again, like, what's happening? And they said, oh, his staff, whoever, I forgot what the official title is, whoever works with him, whoever assistant, I don't know I don't know the right words. But anyway, the person, they weren't there either. They left with him. So they also left. So I was like, oh, and nobody called me. Oh, I'm so sorry. That's how I ended up getting the other appointment with the doctor. And they said, you know what? We're not even going to charge it to your insurance. This is, we have a coding for this. It's just a consultation. So you can just have a conversation, because this is horrible that you went through this. Awesome. And then that doctor canceled on me the day before I was supposed to go to to our consultation. And it wasn't clear when I would be able to meet with them. It seemed like they had, and I just it just left a bad taste. So I said, I'm not going to deal with this, because I feel like maybe I shouldn't get a surgery at this location. And again, so it's like, and then I try again, and then I'm convincing myself to do it, even though I'm terrified of the surgery. Like everything, I want to get it done because I don't want to suffer, but there's something telling me to be very afraid, and I don't know. But all these coincidences, and I'm a practicing witch. I'm at the stage now. So I found a surgeon myself. I have 2 appointments lined up, and I'm having a problem with the insurance again. and I expect it'll be a similar thing. I'll have a different insurance in about a month or two, and I'm struggling with trying to figure out myself. Is this a coincidence? Is this a sign that I shouldn't get the surgery? But I'm legit suffering. I'm like, my doctor's office is concerned. I may look at iron like infusions at some point because I just can't seem to absorb iron even when I take the supplements. I've changed my whole diet. I've done so many things, and it's gnawing at me because I'm trying to decipher myself. What's what? Is this really a cool? I mean, 4 attempts at trying to get a surgery to remove fibroids, and four, like, come on, now I'm on a repeat of the year before. Like, I don't. Um, I'm afraid to admit that it's not a coincidence because I don't know what else to do outside of that. And that's just facts. That's where I'm at right now. I don't know what I'm gonna do. I don't know what's because that was kind of the last resort. So I don't know. Is it a sign or is it coincidence? I'm working right now. I've been working with Aphrodite. This is a new experience for me, and yeah, I'm gonna continue to work with my ancestors, of course. And I'm starting to think that I'm not supposed to get cut on. I'm not supposed to get a surgery. 4 different, like, these are wild events that happen. I'm shortening it, but it was a lot more crazy drama with all of this. Um, Another healthy witchcraft practice, and I just tangent over, by the way. I just wanted to share, like, I question whether what's coincidence and what's a spiritual sign. Is this a sign to? I mean, if 4 times I'm starting to think it's a spiritual sign, y'all. But another thing, you're able to balance your spiritual life with the mundane, like your work, relationships, and self care. When I did work a traditional job, I know I would try to always take off at, like, my religious holidays, so Samhain and Bog, Beltane, all that sort of stuff. I always try to get those, and to me that was the balance because I want to be available for ritual that day, and I kind of I'm a high priestess of a coven as well, so I also want to kind of be in the right mind state for that. So I would take off. To me, that's balance. That's how I would um enact balance with my spirituality and like work and things like that. Keeping crystals around my desk with certain intentions, that's balance for me. Um, Balance for me is not in a meeting talking about I'm going to consult my cards or something like that. Like, I won't do that. I know how to be in business and work and not not do that. Like, I don't think that's being authentic in who you are. I think that there should be some separation and some boundaries. People don't need to know that I can read cards. Like, that's not why I'm here. I'm not being paid for that. So why would I, but this seems like common sense, but not everybody gets this. And it's not to criticize, but, like, that's not being balanced. That's not being your authentic self, in a work environment, telling people, about your spirituality. In the same way, I do not want anyone to tell me, they got caught the Holy Ghost on Sunday and they're giving me their breakdown. Like, I don't want to hear that either. So I'm not going to tell you things either. Now, signs, and I'm stalling. Signs, it might be something else. Okay, here we go. On the flip side, here are some other things you might want to consider. Are you feeling scared, unsafe, or overwhelmed by your spiritual experiences? Now, I want to do a caveat on this one. In the very beginning in my practice, I was always scared. I was a scaredy cat. I was shaky. Um, Everything spooked me a little bit. And I start off as Wiccan. Reading about the horned god evoked, like, a little bit of terror in me, because I was coming. I still had some leftover Christianity stuff, but yeah, like that. Like, seriously, it would freak me out a little bit. Learning to do rituals on my own way back when, it was scary. I felt like I wanted something to happen, but I was terrified something would happen. So I felt unsafe, overwhelmed, and scared all at the same time because I really was scared. But I realized those were coming. I learned, I knew why I was feeling like that. It wasn't the practice itself. It was it was me. I was coming in afraid. So I hadn't even done anything and I was already scared about what might happen. When I would pull cards and I started learning tarot, I was scared of certain cards. The Tower, the Devil card, those freaked me out, scared me. Kim says, "Wow, I'm so sorry to hear about your experience. I work at a health insurance company. This is a common surgery, so it's weird you keep hitting a wall." Me too, scared at the beginning. Empress scoff. Yeah, it is concerning to, like, I'm giving you the shortened version, but essentially that's what happened. Like, keep hitting a wall. It it's odd. It's odd. It's a very odd thing that keeps happening. And I've had the most bizarre reasons, and I'm starting to take it as a sign. Um, I have a friend who's not witchy at all. She's a bit more open minded because we're friends about it, like as far as like with me. But she's very practical minded, and she's at the stage now, and she said, um, I can grow whatever you need here, because she's got a nice space. She said, because you would want dried herbs anyway. I'll just grow all the herbs to help support you, and we'll just do that, and I'll just mail, and I'll just grow all the herbs. She was like, well, we'll just take the natural route for everything, and I'm like, dang, even she's saying it, like, and she's my most practical minded person, so now she's like, I don't know no more. Like I can't explain this one either. Anyway, but yeah, yeah, I was terrified in the beginning of my practice. So if you're dealing with residual fear from being in a fear-based religion, um, consider that before, nobody's saying you're in a something else category. You might just need to do some other stuff to deconstructing of that whole system you were in. I'm one of those people, if you can kind of look at what it is head on and say, okay, the religion has been about this, that. The facts are this, and that. Um, and if I can kind of just lay it all out, I mean, write it out on a board or something, all the facts, the things that you know, and kind of just look back and be like, why am I afraid? What am I so afraid of? But if it's not that situation, if it's not that, and you're scared because there's something else going on, then we might be in a something else category. If you feel unsafe, I think sometimes when people talk about ancestor reverence, one of the things that kind of bugs me, especially people go on social media and they'll say things like, um, my ancestors told me not, to go with this guy. I will say that. They told me he wasn't right. I did it anyway, me being hard headed. Because I've actually, I'm summarizing bits and things I've seen. And I did it anyway. And, this guy cheated on me or he hurt me. He did something to me, something very negative. You were hurt. And there's some people who felt like that was their punishment, excuse me, for not listening to the ancestors, a deity, or whatever. And I'm like, that's not life. Hmm? Michael Nelson, I'm not sure what that is. Forgive me. What you're saying. Um, but yeah, I don't like how that comes across because it kind of feels like, I mean, we're having a human experience. We're people, right? And we're experiencing other people, and even if, I mean, I don't like the idea that you're being punished by your ancestors. I know some people are more than okay with that way of thinking, but I think that's a throat that's coming from the one of the big threes that you were in. The concept of like this sacrifice and punishment, and there's somebody above you who's wanting to punish you. I don't agree with that. Um, are you hearing voices or seeing things that make you question reality but don't feel grounding or comforting in any way? I talked about the voices. This is a serious thing, and the seeing things. Unfortunately, I have experienced being around people who were experiencing full on hallucinations um, as an adult and as a child. Uh, and this has happened more than once in my life. It is terrifying to, as a child, it's really scary. As an adult, it's still scary to see that in real life. To see someone actively experiencing hallucinations, and the hallucinations are freaking them out. Like they feel something's coming after them, that type of thing. Uh, One of the more vivid ones, I had a family member, they were pregnant and they had a severe fever. It was bad, and I'm young. I'm a young woman at this point. I don't have kids yet. So I knew they were sick. I didn't understand. I didn't know. I didn't know. But yeah, in hindsight, we should have called them. We should have. She did go to the hospital, but she should have already went. But her fever was spiking. She started hallucinating, and it was really bad. And like she freaked us all out. Right? You know, we were so scared because I couldn't understand what was happening. Because I was like, and I'm looking like, what you see? What are you seeing? I'm crying, freaking out. Because I'm like, what? And she's like freaking out. She's scared and she's screaming and crying. Like that was, and I've seen it in other capacities, not quite as dramatic, but either way, it's very unnerving. And that's just me being in the presence of someone experiencing it. So to be someone who's experiencing it, let me tell you, I can't imagine, but that is definitely in the something else category. Um, when most people, even I've come across psychic mediums, and they talk about experiencing spirits, they have a tell. Something tells them either it's an image they see in their mind's eye, or they might see like in reality. Like I've discussed this before. Like I see like it feels like a distortion in a reality around an object or something like that. That's how your eyes interpret it. But like to see like someone standing in front of you, flesh and blood, like we see in the movies, like the ghost whisperer, and the ghost is standing right there and like fully looking um, like a person or an animal or something like that. I would rule out the something else category before I just assume witchcraft and assume that you have these wonderful new abilities. Um, I would rule that out first because typically, like I said, in my experience, talking to people who their work is like that is how they get paid, being a psychic medium, they never explain it like that. Flesh and blood, like somebody looks like very much alive standing in front of them. That's typically not how spirits come across. Of course, there's we have charlatans, we have people on TV and the internet's going to tell you all kinds of things, but people I felt were legit over the years that I've come across, it's never been described like that. So I think that's something worth getting some help about if you're seeing it like that. Um, and as far as about not feeling grounded and comforted, that's something to pay attention to. Um, if it feels unnerving, it maybe it's not witchcraft. Maybe this is not about you being a witch. This is something else. Also, are you struggling to separate your spiritual experiences from everyday life? Or is it interfering with your ability to function? That's something to think about. For a lot of people, I know okay, I'm one of those people living your magic in your everyday life. Most of these things are going to be very subtle. The way, you turn your tea in a clockwise. Maybe you're saying something to banish something, so counterclockwise. Sorry. Let me. I don't even know what that was for. I. Oh, did I get? Oh, okay. Let me mute my phone. I'm like, what is this even for? I don't know. Anyway, but yeah, live your magic. I talk about doing that, but it should never interfere with your daily life. It shouldn't interfere if you're trying to date people and things like that. Now, it could interfere for them if you tell them, "Hey, I practice witchcraft." Well, that's a different conversation, but like you interacting with people, dating, making friends, just putting yourself out there. I caution if you're, let me give an example. I'm the type of person, I'll say, if I meet somebody, say something about their energy was off, or something about their energy. Oh, I love their energy. Ooh, you know what? I find this person so attractive, mostly because of their energy. It's something about them, right? That's something I'll say. Um, that kind of emboldens me to want to get to know you. However, even though I'm loving your energy in this interaction and I'm really liking you, if the next time I talk with you and I'm really excited to see you and your energy is not quite the same, but it's not bad, but I just feel like we're just having a different interaction. I'm gonna let that be my guide. I'm not gonna ignore. I'm not gonna get to go with. Oh, well, the energy was good, so I know their energy is great, so I'm gonna go with it. No, I'm meeting you where you are right now. If I feel like it's something suspect going on, I'm not ignoring that and putting myself in potentially harm's way because the energy was great in the beginning. And I don't know. Uh, Let me read some of this here. Okay, you said VRIL is the universal life force. Viral? Okay. Life force energy that permeates all matter and space in the universe. It's the force from Star Wars. Oh, the life force of the soul. Got you. Okay. And so your question about that was, so let me go back to your other question so I can understand. Opinions on that, the life force in the universe. So like I'm thinking like dark matter, things like that. That's another conversation. That's a good thing. I can get into that, but I can't really sum that up in just a cute little sentence to answer you like what are my opinions? That's another conversation. I'm gonna just say that. Um, the Empress Goth says I'm not nervous with the spirit realm. It's the human energy that makes me uncomfortable. And come to find out, I'm correct. It is scary. You ain't lying. Kim says, it is scary to watch someone experiencing hallucinations. My family member was in a psychosis, and I spoke with him to see if it was a spiritual awakening. It was not and made me nervous. Let me tell you, first of all, I'll be honest with you. I usually come from a perspective of is it spiritual first before I go into the other thing because I am so open-minded and I do have questions about mental wellness, health, all that sort of stuff, like as far as it relates to hallucinations and things of that nature, um, like schizophrenia, and where does that, is there overlap with spirituality? I still have questions about that. I think I would have to go back to school and kind of just really dive in. Um, but what I do understand that either way, for the person experiencing it, it is safer for them to approach it from a mental health perspective than not. Because those, over the years, the people that I've unfortunately witnessed, fortunately, unfortunately, I say fortunately because I helped them. I helped them as best as I could with the limited knowledge that I had. I never judged them. And I wouldn't say I kept my cool, especially as a kid. I wouldn't say that at all. But I never judged them when it was over with. So I was and I learned from that experience. Um, and unfortunately, because that's terrifying in real life. But I think it's important for them to get the help that they need because realistically, you're no longer rational. You can't rationalize with them, have a rational conversation when someone's in full blown psychosis. May you not experience, may you never experience it for real, like yourself or in dealing with it, because it's scary. I mean, you're you could be keeping someone from hurting themselves or hurting you. It could go either way. Um, but if it's interfering with your ability to function, meaning Mercury's in retrograde and you can't go, you won't go to work, you won't go to school, you don't want to get out of the bed because you know what's going to happen. You know it's going to get you. Um, there's a trip that you would like to take and the dates line up. You can get time off of work. That's when the best booking dates are. Everything is lined up, but it's during Mercury in retrograde, and you're like, I'm not going to get on a plane. I'm not going to do it. That is interfering in your ability to function. I know you might not want to hear that, but it is, because to be honest with you, as a practicing witch who's been practicing for some time now, life doesn't stop because Mercury is in retrograde. There's other retrograde that can occur that you're probably not even aware of that could also affect you. But I don't want to scare anybody with more things. But you could always do some work to add additional protection. And one of the most mundane things you can do is just pay attention to the details of your travel plans. Have backup plans. Make sure you have extra cushion of savings and things like that in case things get delayed. You got to stay someplace. Like, there are practical things, mundane things you can do to help you get, say, a little charm over it, to add a little witchiness to it. But it shouldn't interfere with your life. Mercury being in retrograde. There are some people who get upset, and this is crazy. Do you realize there are some people, when they realize when conception was and when their child will be born, some people really don't want to give birth to a specific zodiac sign? That is a thing. That is a thing. And I mean, it's a thing for some of us all. I'll be honest with you. And I personally would prefer another fire sign. Both my children are fire signs. We all get along for the most part. My Sag is any Sagittarius out there, you already know. Sagittarius men specifically, they move a little different. They move a little different, and that's my one adult child, where it's like it starts off with like, oh wait, you talking to me. It just escalates quickly with that one. And they'll just keep a real, frank express, like, look on their face, like, yeah, I said it. But I'm okay with it because we work it out. um, a water sign would take me out. I can't. I can't. And they won't fit in a family. Like, what are we gonna do with you? We're all fire signs over here. We don't know where to put you. I could deal with an air sign, but a water sign? Where are you going? How you fit into this? We just cancel each other out. Anyway. But seriously, like, I joke, but there are people who are dead serious about this. And imagine if they were so serious about it and they treated that child differently because they didn't like that zodiac sign. Remember, it's okay to have intense spiritual experiences. I've had some very intense spiritual experiences. I did a quantum leap. I can talk about this now because it's done. I don't talk about active spiritual work that I do. But I did last year, it was a leap year, so I did a spell. And I sort of stepped into my new reality, and it worked. It definitely worked. So that was intense, because it's one thing to plan out the spell, write the spell, think of the ingredients, think of the intention behind it, do the spell, align with the intention, feel it's real, all the props, all the things you have, do it, and be open to the experience, and like genuinely be vulnerable with yourself in that moment and think, this is really gonna happen. All these things I said, this is spell work, by the way. This is really gonna happen. Oh, I'm so happy this is gonna happen. okay, I'm looking forward to how this is going to happen. And things started happening, and I'm like, oh shit, oh shoot, sorry, it really is happening. This is happening. Oh my God. So it got a little intense. It can get a little intense. So that's a more positive spiritual experience that I've had. Water douses fire. It would make you crazy. It would make me crazy. It would. I don't have a lot of water signs in my life. I have a moon in Cancer, by the way. I have my own contradictions. Like I get so weepy and sentimental about so many things, which makes another part of me cringe and be like, "What are we doing? Let's get over it. Rip it down." Anyway, um, so yeah, remember again, these spiritual experiences that might be intense are perfectly okay, but caveat, if they're causing harm or confusion, it's worth pausing and reaching out for support. um Harm or confusion. Harm, you thinking about harming yourself or harming somebody else. Confusion, you you're having a hard time concentrating on things that bring you joy. I'm not even going to go into work. Things that make you happy, things you normally do. And it could be anything from a TV show that you like, reading, things like that. You're not able to do these things. Like you can't, your brain can't stay on these things because the intensity of that situation, it's not just happening in the ritual or when you did the spell. It's reverberating, like it's happening days later. That same level of intensity. Be careful. Be careful. And I'm not, when I say intensity, because I gave a good experience, like it was more like me marveling and being in a space of wonder. Like, wow, this is so awesome. Oh my God, this really worked. Like I knew it was gonna work, but it worked. And just being happy, and it just kind of set the tone. But like, um, yeah, I didn't feel confused about it. I didn't confused about the reality that I was in, either. If that, yeah, because I did a quantum leap spell. I always knew I was still very much in 2024. I just wanted in my spell to experience these things that I knew would be in the future. I wanted to bring those to me in this current present situation. But I was never confused about what time frame I was in at any point. That's important. Okay, so bridging witchcraft and mental health. So let's talk about the overlap between witchcraft and mental health. So I have a few things that I wanted to talk about this. So being a witch doesn't mean you're immune to mental health, but I think we know that, but I'm gonna state it. Mental health struggles. In fact, our practices can bring about a lot of emotions and memories. Me, especially during shadow work or rituals for healing. Um, I've had to come to terms with a few things in my practice. I know when I was working on with my coven, one of our coven members, uh, she's a master level Reiki or Reiki master, and she was able to give us the training. And we did an exercise, and it stays with me. And I didn't come into the exercise thinking this, but it touched on some traumatic childhood stuff. And I basically sent through space and time uh, this warmth, healing energy to the little girl me. And oh boy, that was intense. That was intense. It was emotional and a lot of things that I suppressed. And I was one of those adults walking around thinking, it's strange that I don't remember parts of my childhood. And I was eventually told that's related to trauma. Um, okay. I was like, oh, okay. Well, I learned this activity when being very young. And when I mean young, I'm like, I remember, I think I was like 6, 7. I couldn't sleep at night because I had these bad things playing in my head, and I remember I used to get nauseous. I always had stomach issues too, but it made me nauseous thinking about it. And I thought I was gonna throw up, and I figured out as a kid to do this thing where I just would find a way to shut it off, and it just worked. And then I never felt like that anymore. Um, so I compartmentalized some stuff, and I learned how to do this as a small child. This would have consequences, by the way, years later. And then here I am, very much an adult, having this session, and these intense things came over me, and I truly felt like it worked for me. That experience, though, and I bring this up because when I sent that ball, like we were practicing creating this ball of energy, and when I was able to send it, I really felt like I healed her and I made her better. And through space time, and just like, if you want to think about, like, visiting the past and coming back to the future and the present and all that sort of stuff, like, I felt better because I felt like I did something in the now to go back in the past, and I sort of made it better. um that was grounding. Yeah, that was helpful. This worked out for me, but this could have went sideways, and I'm not going to say for somebody else. For me, it could have went sideways. I could have done that, and I might not have been able, like, once I open up that compartmentalized stuff that I put away as that little girl, and I'm facing it as this woman. If I don't want to face it, or I don't know how, or there's a lot of things that could have happened, and I just wouldn't have been okay. And I would have not been able to be, I would not have been okay probably even now. And I'd be talking to somebody, and trying to really work through things, and not even understanding why that is, because I shut that away for so long, and I never revisited until that moment. um I'm grateful that I was able to process it in real time with people. By the way, this was in a group, with my coven, and still get the healing benefits from it. But I recognize it could have went a different way. I'm very grateful it didn't. And I'm grateful I received that healing. And I'm gonna give a shout out to said coven member, because she's good at what she does. Because I think her guiding me was helpful as well. Um, yeah. So one thing I've learned is that it's okay to be a witch and still seek therapy or take medication. The medication thing has been tough. I'm not gonna lie to you. I didn't always feel that way. And I'm gonna be completely vulnerable and completely honest with you. I didn't think that was, I thought it could block things, and I realized it's just not the case. And also, if I kind of came to a meeting of the minds about this, like, well, if you feel that way about medic, sorry, phone's ringing. If you feel that way about medication, then what do you feel about supplements or natural remedies and things like that? Like, is that okay? So is it just like the synthetic thing? So what, I had to ask myself all these questions, and I'm like, what are you doing? If that's the thing that makes you feel more make you feel more grounded, then you can be a better witch. Like, and by the way, the medication I was thinking about wasn't even like for psychiatric drugs or something like that. I was thinking birth control pills. Because I wanted to be natural. This is some years back. I remember thinking about this. I was like, well, I don't want to be on birth control pills because I want to experience the natural cycles and all this sort of stuff. Like, I was into all that sort of thing. I'm sorry, I'm getting distracted. Why are people calling me? uh, no one I know is why. Like, people I know and talk to regularly, nobody in all these years pay attention to what I do on YouTube. Nobody does. Oh gosh. Anyway, moving on. Yes, therapy is okay and medication is necessary. I've had to come to terms with that myself. And I was just like, what are you doing? You're being silly. If it makes you feel normal, take the drugs. Take the drugs. The drugs working. These things aren't contradictory. Many aspects of witchcraft align beautifully with mental health care. Grounding exercises, definitely, yeah. Like touching the earth, deep breathing. I learned about deep breathing in therapy and like self help books in the mental health category. Working with crystals like hematite, also some therapy, or depends on who you work with, but some are cool with crystals. Journaling. I talk about magical record keeping all the time, but journaling, keeping a grimoire, book of shadows, can be a form of therapy. By the way, I, oof. As a kid, I kept a diary. Don't understand what to type. Yeah, I kept with the little lock and everything. I remember I begged my mom for it, and I wrote into that diary. I don't know if my mom ever read it. I don't know if she cared. I don't know. I mean, what? It wasn't only so much drama going on in my life. I was like elementary school, late elementary school. I wanted it, and then definitely through middle school, I always kept a diary. Meditation and mindfulness is another thing as well that kind of blends with witchcraft. Um, these are core practices in both spirituality and mental health. So, mindfulness, you hear that a lot as a buzzword of meditation, but essentially, kind of just like taking time to like still yourself. Doing grounding work before rituals and spells. I mean, I kind of feel like it's important, and I think it's like mandatory at this point for me, before any practices, to do some sort of grounding work. Honestly, a glass of water could be grounding work. The process, you got to look at it from that, like taking the time. You're connecting with the element first of all, from witchcraft perspective. You're connecting with the element of water. So um, flow, getting sort of in a flow state. So think about that process as, from glass mouth, is flowing through your system. Literal flow state is another way to connect with it, and being mindful and intentional about this before you do any sort of practice. If you're not going to do the deep breathing, you're not going to do all the other stuff. I personally, okay, here's where I get into circle casting. The act of setting up the circle before I even call the quarters and all that sort of stuff, like just laying things where they are in that moment, is sort of very grounding for me. I'm aware of everything I'm doing. I'm like, something's happening mentally to me at that point where I realize, with each thing I lay, I realize like I'm in a different, by the time I put the first thing down on the floor to represent the north or whatever, by the time I get to the last the element or direction, I'm already different. I'm in a different headspace because I'm very mindful, intentional about the process. But to me, these are just things that I'm doing to, like, I don't want to say trick my mind. That's what I want to say, but that's not the right word. To, yeah, be intentional, and it's grounding. It's a grounding exercise as well. What's one of the reasons I like? I don't do it all the time, but I do like casting a circle. If you're not sure where to draw the line, here's a question you can ask yourself: am I in control of my practice, or is my practice controlling me? If you feel like you are running around like a chicken with their head cut off, grabbing things, offerings, to appease the gods, the goddesses, the ancestor spirits, and you're getting up in the middle of the night, you're not sleeping, who's controlling who? Who's controlling who? And why are you accepting that that is part of the practice? Why do you think that is? Why do you think you could, because you think the spirit should control you? You think your living experience is to be the servant, subservient to spirits that already got to live their life in flesh and blood, and you think you're supposed to be subservient? I want you to really think about that. I'm talking witchcraft. If this is touching you in a way where it's kind of irritating you a little bit, you probably still got some Abrahamic stuff going on, and that's your business. But that's not what this is. And for a good amount of us, are there Christian witches? Yes. That's a niche, special group And then we got the other ones who want to still work with the Bible, the hoodoos. We got them over there. And I'm not disparaging any of this. I'm just talking about the rest of us over here who are not doing those things. You might still be struggling with some of the side effects of being in Abrahamic type religions, by the way. Just saying. If that bothers you a little bit hearing that, am I in control of my practice, or is my practice controlling me? You should be in control of your practice, by the way. In short, it's you. You're the one in control. Remember that. You're making the rules. I always talk about this. I am the magic. I'm making the magic over here. They're coming to see me, Otis. Like, it's about me. I'm producing the magic. The choices that I make, I deal with the consequences. The choices I don't make, I deal with those consequences. If I choose, I pull cards out and I get the message and I interpret it and I go with that information, I made that choice. The cards didn't tell me, spirit didn't force me. I made the choice. It was always my choice. The spells that I've done, mine, my choice, my energy, what I put into it, what I did afterwards, that's up to me. I'm the one in control. So let's talk about some tips for staying grounded. Set boundaries with your practice. Only open sacred space when you're ready and close it properly. This is definitely for those of us who do portal magic, working with mirrors, again, casting circles, things of that nature. For some of us is good. I think if you struggle with, like, if you are very afraid, that I did more circle casting in my Wiccan days and coming out of it. And I think it was because I was afraid. And that circle gave me some stability and making me feel a little less afraid. But yes, seriously, you should set boundaries with your practice. Incorporate regular self-care, cleansing baths, spiritual baths, a cup of tea with intention, going for walks, getting outside, literally touching grass, being an element of nature, whatever that is. If you live in a city, the outside air, that's your nature. Being aware of just, you're aware, look around you, look at the sky. If you're fortunate enough to be able to go outside at night, even if it's like on a patio or a porch situation, or just like kind of on your front step, take a look up, look up. Not, we don't all do that very often, but look up, look at the stars, or just look at the night sky. Connect with that energy. It's good for self-care. Know your triggers. If there are certain rituals or topics that feel too heavy, it's okay to step back and approach them later. When we're talking about, we're going to come back on Friday and talk more about part 2 of for my witchy review. Dang, I can't remember the name of the book. Anyway, I don't have anything around me to remember. But anyway, the book that we're talking about, one of the things is I know we read about was around Samhain, like the veil's thin. You hear the veil's thin. Working with the dead. Well, if you've recently had someone that passed away, you may not want to do that. So don't. And if you're in a coven or some sort of spiritual group or circle or something like that, you don't participate. It's okay. You don't have to. Don't, especially if you don't know where this is going to take you and you don't want to find out, you're not ready for that, then don't. I also say this for love work, love magic. Sometimes, like glamour work and things like that, it can touch into, and I'm working on something right now, and I'm making these connections in some project I'm working on. But anyway, you might not be ready for a love spell, even if you've been single. and you say maybe it'd be nice to meet somebody, but you might not be okay with an attraction spell or a love spell, because deep down, maybe you really enjoy being single. But everybody around you, we're coming on February, it's Valentine's Day, and it's like the love day and all that sort of stuff. And the propaganda with that, all the stuff and the movies and Hallmark. And if you're like me, you're a girl who loves love, You might feel like, oh, let me cast a love spell on myself or something like that. And then you do, and then you get a date and you go out and you get catfished. Is this too much? Too specific? Anyway, maybe you weren't ready yet after all. Maybe you should just approach it later, but know your triggers. Know your triggers. When to seek help. If you're struggling to discern whether your experiences are spiritual or related to mental health, reach out. Talking to a therapist doesn't make you less of a witch, it makes you someone who values their well being. I did put a resource that's like a national number, by the way. I did put a resource in the description if you did want to reach out for help. Um, so I am curious, and anybody here, if you want to participate or if you watch this on a replay, have you ever felt conflicted about your spiritual experiences? And this might help other people. How do you stay grounded in your practice while caring for your mental health? Um, Maybe we could be supportive to some people. I mean, I have my ways, but everybody's different on how they do it. Um, so maybe let's share. Um, Affirmations are a good one for me to stay grounded and centered. Affirmations, and which affirmation, it depends. There's so many different resources we have now. I mean, you could Google affirmations and probably find something right there. You can use Chat GPT if you're open to that. I don't, no argument if you don't, but you could use Chat GPT as well. Um, if you're curious, to like about affirmations and things like that. Um, but for me, affirmations, I like crystal therapy. I wasn't always, I like collecting crystals because I think I'm a bit of a collector, but I also like to use crystals. Again, this was gifted to me, and this is something I noticed. I kind of use it like, I guess, how somebody would approach a stress ball. And also, it's just comforting to me, and I keep it on my desk and I just use it. Um, Whenever I touch it, I don't know, it makes me feel better. It makes me feel comfortable, and the person who gave it to me loves me very much, and I think I feel that through this. So yeah, um, I just feel a little bit better, and I notice over like the last year, it's been just something it's in my hand usually when I'm sitting here or when I'm thinking, especially when I'm like writing and I'm in between thinking. Sometimes I'll pick this up and just roll it in my hand and I'm just thinking thoughts. So, mm, but it's a practice. It's something I realize I've just started. I've not just started, but I've included into my practice and something that I do. But it's a grounding thing for me. So, find you a crystal if that's the case. But the other thing I do like, because once I did understand and learn to work Reiki myself, I use it for myself. And I like to do this thing where I'm kind of like, how do it's like it's in my head, but anyway, like I want to say I'm digging deep, um, kind of internally in things that make me like, if I feel worry, doubt, confusion, too much fear on something, like I dig deep and I kind of like, I feel like I'm pulling it out, and I'll like from my gut, because I have like, if I'm upset about something, I always feel in my stomach, so I feel I'm like pulling it up out of me, and that's like a practice that I do. Years ago, I met this man at this company I worked with, and he was a bit of a spiritualist himself. And this is before I even called myself anything. I was just trying to learn everything. And I remember I started suffering from migraines really bad, and I was telling him about it, and he was telling me to do this practice of like pull, do like this. He said, you pull this and you just pull out that pain. And he told me to assign it a color. This is before I have picked up anything witchy. So at this point in my life, I think I'm like 26. I'm 26 years old, and I know I'm not doing Christianity at this stage, but he's teaching me some other stuff, and I'm like, whoa! And I attempt to do this, like trying to pull the pain out. It didn't completely take it away, but it did I remember trying this because I was going through it. I had to go see like a specialist. They gave me like special, fresh to the market medications to help with these migraines. It was hormonal, and I was able to wrap that up. But yeah, he taught me that technique back then. And the Empress Goth says, I've been buying mystery bags, and a favorite shop I go to, you never know what you're going to get. That is how I'm getting my stones lately. Oh, that's pretty cool. A mystery box. I like the idea of that. But yeah, getting stones. There's a couple. First of all, I live in a mecca of places where I can go and get crystals, and you can get like wholesale prices apparently. I've just been ignoring that apparently, but I need to get on my crystal shopping and go look for some stuff because apparently I'm in the mecca. I didn't realize that. Like between like Arizona, excuse me, I think New Mexico and like Nevada, there are lots of places apparently you can go and get wholesale crystals. They're not the little stones. I got you. Yeah, I want some big stones. I do. And I do want to spend the wholesale price. I don't want to spend the other prices. So I don't know. I might pop up one day with some gigantic stones or something around here. Um, but that is pretty much all of the discussion. Hopefully, this was helpful. It made you think a little bit. I know I've shared a lot of personal little details, surgery stuff, childhood trauma, you know, just all the things. But I mean, these are very real things. I like to speak from experience. Um, and these are things I've experienced, and these are things that are happening. And I've had to, at each of these steps, ask myself questions like, what's real? What's not? What is this? Is this a coincidence? Is this a spiritual sign? Um, how sure am I? You know, especially when you start talking about like health in general, mental health, body health, all that sort of stuff. You want to make sure you're making the right decision either way, to do something or to not do something. Um, so this is something I'm working through. I'm still working through it. I don't want to ignore my body and what it's telling me. I don't want to ignore my doctors. I don't want to ignore my intuition and what is starting to not be coincidence, but to be something else. I don't want to ignore that either. I'm glad it was helpful. But yeah, thank you all for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share all that YouTube stuff. It really helps the channel. Um, and go ahead and go to my website, leaptaken.com. Check out the services that I offer. And I have a membership here. Here at Leap Taken on YouTube is essentially like a Patreon. You would be supporting the channel. Very low cost, but I think good value, including deep discounts over at my website, leaptaken.com. So go ahead and hit the join button if you'd like to join Leap Taken membership. And yeah, I'm sending everybody positive energy. We have a lot that's happening in the world. You know that situations happen next week with the orange person, and so much is going to be happening. And yeah, we can say, oh, well, that's politics. Politics can affect mental health. So let's all practice we got time. Let's work on our grounding exercises. Let's try to center ourselves, and let's try to be as the magical, witchiest people that we can. Put up our protection. Um, you know, be open, and be kind to ourselves and our spirit. Okay. I'm glad y'all